I was in financial services marketing for 14 years. I worked with a firm in Denver for 10 of those years. And it just got to a point where I wasn't loving what I was doing. And it was taking up, obviously the good majority of every day or most of my days. I worked for it was a boutique company, but it was also all about the client experience, which meant that we got to be on 24/7 and connected to our phones 24/7. And anyone who goes through that knows that there is a breaking point, and I just had my breaking point.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre. If you're active at all, whether you're running or simply out walking for the day, you've probably experienced one of the number one problems that active people have, and that's chafing. Solpre's all-new, all-natural anti-chafe balm solves that problem while feeding your skin the vital nutrients it needs to be healthy. If you'd like to stop chafing once and for all and treat your body right, go to solpri.com to check out the anti-chafe balm today. That's SOLPRI.com. Welcome to the Smart Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Funk. My guest today is a Boston Qualifier. She is the founder of Elevate Your Running, Run Coaching, also the host of the Elevate Your Running podcast. If you're interested in podcasts, clearly you are because you're listening to this one. You can find her on Instagram at Sara Runs Happy. That'll be in the description below. And if you're on YouTube, that'll be on the screen. You can also find her at elevateyourrunning.com. Welcome to the show, Sara Manderscheid.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining me, Sara. For you listening, you don't know, I had a dog crisis last week that Sara graciously moved our episode. I was like, she was trying to call in. It was last minute. I was in the car trying to tell her I had to take my dog to the vet. So just off the bat, she already gets kudos points for being a great person and being flexible, when dog crises occur.
Yeah, no problem, Jesse. I'm glad that we were able to connect and make this happen.
Yeah. So I know we were talking before, you also have a dog, and mine, as we mentioned, is both small, it's a Jack Russell Terrier, and old, going to be 14 this summer. So he's not really the best dog for running. And I've never run with a dog, but I know some people do. Is that something you take? Do you take your dog out for runs with you?
So I have a black lab. Her name is Kenzie. She's 6 years old. She's amazing. And when I first got her and brought her home, and she was still a puppy, we would run a little bit together. And then over time, she decided, I don't really like running with mom. I like chasing the ball and swimming and doing all the things. So for the last few years, she has not run with me. And at the same time, over these past few months, she has found her love of running again with me. So if we are off leash, we live in Boulder, Colorado. So it's a dog friendly place to live. And there's a lot of trails that she can be off leash on. She's having the time of her life, and it's so great. And she's at a great age too, because she listens to me most of the time and she has a lot of fun.
I see sometimes, where I live, there's kind of a trail, a common trail that a lot of people run on, because it's gravelly, crushed gravel, really finely crushed gravel, which is nicer than running on a sidewalk. We don't have quite as nice, anywhere near as nice a setup and trail system as Boulder does. But I'll see people with their belts on that has their leash attached to it, and it's attached to their dog, and they're running, and the dog's just running with them, and I'm like, I don't know how I get a dog that can do that or how to train a dog to do that, but I'm always just trying to find somebody that already knows how to do that, because I know, I've had people ask about how do you do that to me being a runner, and I'm like, I don't know. I need to find an expert.
Don't you feel like I've seen that as well? And every time I look at that setup, I think, gosh, if I did that, I feel like I would fall. And that's like one of my things too. I'm a very klutzy runner. Yes, I have BQ'd and I fall a lot while running. So the idea of having my 55-pound dog attached to, my waist, I don't know, it just kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I think the only concern is just how well they listen or how well they're able to follow your own pace. We got our dog when he was 10 through an odd series of events. And because he's old, he doesn't require that much walking. But when he does walk, he sometimes just like will pull, and we haven't trained that out of him. So we're bad dog owners. I know people are waggling their fingers at me right now for not having fixed that. But I just imagined like trying to run with him and him like speeding up and slowing down, speeding up and slowing down. And just that would be a terrible situation, especially if you increase the weight and have like a heavier dog like you do, comparatively
Mhm.
speaking. Um,
Yeah.
just, yeah. And then tripping over the tether and all that kind of stuff.
I could totally see myself doing that. I mean, I fell yesterday in Boulder running, like just straight up tripped over a rock. So I feel like, maybe I'll just have my dog off leash and she can run happy next to me.
Is that, do you just get up, dust yourself off, and keep going? Do you look around? You're like, because I'll say I fell yesterday, but I was doing like single leg block jumps at the gym, and I like
I
my
wish I
toe
was.
just like hit the box. I just fell over. And I was like, still got 6 more to do. I gotta keep jumping. Like I just I don't know if there's any better way to approach that.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. I have fallen a few times last summer, so I tend to fall the exact same way. My right foot hits something, whether it's an uneven sidewalk or a rock, like yesterday was a rock. I was actually running with one of my athletes yesterday. So, like, it was a little embarrassing, definitely fell. But at the same time, we're all human. We all do things like that. And thankfully, he was there because I scraped up both my knees and my hip. And I was bleeding a lot. So it was nice to have someone else there. So I told them I just needed a minute and like regrouped myself. We walked for a little bit and then we were able to finish the run, which was amazing. And I ran this morning. I felt good this morning. But yeah, typically it's look around, assess the damage on my body, and then get up and keep going.
Now, maybe that begs the question of like, I come from, I guess I'll say, a Boy Scout background or whatever this. So if anybody has been in Scouts, you know where this phrase comes from. The idea of be prepared, basically bring all the things that you might need, even though you might not need them. Um, does that mean that now on runs, the longer runs, you have like a fanny pack with you? It's got like a first aid kit in it, and you're just like, I'm gonna try not to fall, but like I'm gonna make sure I'm good, or you're just like, I'll tough it out till I get home.
I think that after yesterday's fall, I need to do that because this is now the fourth time in like a year this has happened. It's definitely going to be in my car. Like my athlete who was with me was awesome. He's a father of four and he had the first aid kit in his car to help me out, which was amazing. And it's just a great reminder, one, that I should have that stuff in my car, if not on me. And then also to just slow down a little bit, look around, take it all in,
Yeah,
watch for the rocks.
yeah, enjoy yourself a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder. I want to ask you about, before we got going. You mentioned uh, you used your previous life, your previous career was in
Yeah.
marketing, and you've kind of made this switch over to
Yeah.
run coaching. That's hopefully a little bit more filling. I think you said something that fills your cup a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so can you talk to me about why would you leave marketing to be a run coach, which in my opinion seems like a notoriously difficult job to do well and make a living at, um, versus marketing. If
Yeah.
you're good at marketing, like you can work anywhere pretty much. So
Yeah, yeah. That's a great question. So I was in financial services marketing for 14 years. I worked with a firm in Denver for 10 of those years. And it just got to a point where I wasn't loving what I was doing and it was taking up, obviously the good majority of every day or most of my days. I worked for a pretty, it was a boutique company, but it was also all about the client experience, which meant that we got to be on 24/7 and connected to our phones 24/7. And anyone who goes through that knows that there is a breaking point. And I just had my breaking point. And that was in 2019. And I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I just knew that what I was doing was not making me happy and I could make a better or a different difference in the world. But I wasn't sure what that was. And my degree was in finance and marketing. And that's the only thing I knew, but I also knew that I really loved running. And that was always, I mean, that has always been a staple in my life for, well, the last 15 years. I started recreational or endurance running after college, ran track in high school, but I was in high school and I didn't take it seriously. So I took the summer of 2019 off to travel and spend time with my dog and to sleep and do all these things. And I ended up going to a running camp in North Carolina. And it was there where the coaches said, "Hey, this would be really great if you brought this camp or run retreat to Boulder." And it kind of just went one ear and out the other. And I continued on with my way. And at the end of the summer, I ended up contracting with another financial company for 6 months just to do a very specialized piece of the marketing system. And it was really, like, looking back, the most perfect segue because my contract ended 2 weeks before the pandemic started. It was my goal. Like, I already had run retreats in Boulder lined up for the summer of 2020. And when the pandemic hit, and it was very clear, very, very early on that these run retreats were not happening, I thought, now is the time to get certified to be a run coach. I've been running for, at that point, 13 years. I have a lot of my own experience. I have my own coach. I love running. It fills my soul. I host community group runs in Denver, in Boulder. So I love bringing people together to experience those endorphins. And I also just love, love, love coaching other people who get to see how they can transform when they show up and commit to the process.
The simple joy of running, I think, never ceases to amaze me. It just like it seems so fundamental, right? That there's not a whole lot to it, right? It's not it. I'll say there both is a lot to it, and there's also not a lot to it, and that
Yeah.
it can be very deep, but it's also put one foot in front of the other. You need to leave the ground at some point in time. Do
Yeah.
that, rinse and repeat. Like, but there's something I find enjoyable about it. I was having a conversation on the previous podcast earlier this week with Dr. Bradford Cooper, who kind of specializes in helping people like suss out their motivation and build that up and their ability to thrive in difficult environments, kind of performance
Yeah. Their
psychology.
why, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we kind of went through an exercise. He's asking me about things and like my current goals. And even though after we went through that, I still just went like, I've got these goals and I think that helps me structure my training. But even if I didn't have the goals, like I think I would still be out running or wanting to go to the track or whatever, because I just like doing it. Like I like training way more than I like racing. I race,
Yeah. Same.
I race because it seems like you should. And I do, there are races where it's like everything comes together and you have this magical day. They're few and far between for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like chasing that high. But I just, there's something so nice about just go out for a run and then you're like, just the simple joy of it. I don't know. It's hard to communicate. It seems like
It's
maybe you do a better job
amazing.
at it than I do.
Well, it's amazing. It's like you can go out there and have, maybe you're running in the morning, afternoon, evening, whenever is like your time to run. And you could just be having a crappy day, or maybe work has been really stressful, or you're feeling stress in other areas of your life. But that time that you are running is so special and can be so special because you can turn everything off. You don't even need to listen to music. You can turn your phone off, you can turn your watch off. It's like you time, right? And I think that is so special. And just being able to, like you said, put one foot in front of the other to get out there. I think it's really important to establish your why as an athlete, to
Mhm.
know why you're showing up to train or why you want to be consistent. What is the goal? And also what's underneath that goal? I have a goal to run a sub 3 marathon. And I'm also digging in underneath that to figure out, well, why is that goal so important to me?
Mhm.
Why do I want to do that? But I also love training. I love running. Everyone who knows me knows that. Like, I have a running coach and he is there designed to hold me back from myself because I will do way too much. And that feels really good. Like, I run 6 days a week. Some weeks I run 8 runs, which means I get 2 doubles, and it feels really good. But it's also important that everyone shows up the way that they um, need to show up. So some people love running 4 days a week. Some people love 5. Some really love track workouts. Some really love like longer interval workouts, whatever that is. And just creating a plan for yourself or working with a coach to create a plan that's going to set you up for success. So your cup is being filled in the running space.
That's the thing I think a lot of people miss out on. I see not necessarily younger, but beginner or more inexperienced athletes that maybe want to get more serious, and they'll go, well, so and so is doing such and such workout, so I should do that workout.
Mm,
And it's like, yeah, but number one, is that the right workout for your like current skill and fitness level? Is that the right workout that like fits with your goals? Is it conducive to your schedule? Like the whole thing, as a personal example, um, I live in an area that unfortunately many of the tracks are just not available. There's a track at a university, there's private high schools that you can't use those tracks. So the track I have to
yeah.
get to is a high school that, in session most of the year. Thus, I don't want to be on it during school day. So I have to be there
Yeah.
early in the morning. And um, it has been some time since I've been to the track. So, when I was finally several weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, my coach and I were discussing, speed work. Should we do it on like the trail I mentioned or go to the track? And I was like, well, I'll have to get up at, 4:45 to go to the track to do it. He was like, oh, well, I can make it, you know, for the trail. And uh, I said, no, please, for the love of God. Like, I want to go to the track. Like, I would much rather be at the track
Yeah.
where I can really just dial in what I'm doing, because somehow, despite hating track in high school, I found a love for it in college. And I thrive on those things. Like I
Yeah.
thrive on the track workouts and just being able to really dial in that consistency and like rep after rep, trying to go like just like a half second faster, a second faster, whatever it is, just
Yeah.
really, really trying to get your speed down incrementally, where it's much harder to do that on
Mm.
a trail that's going to have indeterminate surfaces, and you have street crossings, and you got
Mm.
people and dogs and people with strollers and all the kinds of
Yes.
things. So yeah,
Yeah.
just finding that thing is I think so crucial to consistency over the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's benefits to both, right? Like,
Right.
I have athletes who have track workouts and they use a track. And I think that's super great because, like you said, they get to build into their reps and feel like they are getting just a little bit faster with each one, which is what I love to see. And then sometimes in Boulder, the tracks are open to the public most of the time, which is really great.
Yeah.
But there's also this really great road in South Boulder that I love sometimes to do either mile repeats on, maybe some threshold work. I think maybe next week I have like, 6 by 3 minutes hard or something like that. So I might go to this road, and there's
Hmm.
definitely, it's not flat, but it's pretty flat. It's like maybe 20, 30 feet of gain.
Yeah.
Um, and so I could argue that, like, if I can still hit my pace or the effort is there, on a road, it could potentially be a really great workout because I'm not running, on a flat track, which makes it just a tad easier, right?
Right.
Yeah, but to each their own. And sometimes it's nice to like mix it up, right? You don't always have to stick to a track or always stick to a trail. Like
Right.
you can kind of flip flop back and forth. But I think at the end of the day, if you don't love the training, then what are you doing? Right. Like, because we can all train and train hard and train for races. And we can also set it up to make it super successful for our lives and to fill our cup.
I don't know what your opinion is on this. I think so. I really like the track workouts. There's also, I don't live anywhere near there, so I can't use it. But in college, there was like a abandoned highway. Basically, they had made a new highway and rerouted, so this road wasn't really used anymore. Relatively flat. It had a couple things, a little bits of movement in it. You had to watch
Yeah.
out for potholes since it was, like, as I mentioned, it was basically
Yeah.
abandoned. But we could do like a 6 mile tempo workout on that and have nearly no car traffic. And it's a whole different ball game doing that versus being on the track.
Yeah.
I like being on the track because of that kind of like A-type personality thing I can do, a bit with the watch. Although I don't clock watch, I just start and stop it at reps. Um, but I think for people that have difficulty, at least initially, figuring out what their pacing is, what is it actually like, what do different tempos
Mhm.
feel like? Because I think that's a skill maybe I take for granted sometimes. I can't speak for
That
you
is
taking it
true.
for granted, but I know some people just have a lot of difficulty. If you say, like, if you tell
Mhm.
me go run tempo, I'm gonna hit that pace because I've been at it so long. Or if we say same with you, but like somebody who's not been running before, they may go too easy or too hard. I like the track as
Yeah.
like almost like a training tool of, okay, let's help teach you what tempo actually feels like. So then when your fitness increases, like, tempo naturally is going to increase because you're working more on your physiological zone than strictly
Mhm.
like, oh, Sarah said I had to come in at this time today or whatever it is. I like it as a
Mhm.
teaching tool. I don't know, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's an excellent point because as new runners get into training, there's so many, I mean, everything's new, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
get to figure out their bodies, they get to figure out what feels like an easy run and what feels like a tempo or threshold and what feels like an all out, how to do strides, like all these things that
Mm-hmm.
you're right. Like as an athlete, and as an athlete, I definitely take it for granted because I've been running for so long and I have the ability to lock in a pace for a certain duration of time. I have the ability to run negative splits if I want to, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing how that feels and how to do it successfully. Um, but the track it just kind of like is a nice foundation of flat running where new beginner or beginner runners can find their flow and figure out and learn their body along the way. I love to coach based on effort and time. So
Mm-hmm.
most of my athletes get time, but then it's like asterisk. If you can't hit this time, it's okay. But on a scale of 1 to 10, if you can find like that 7 or that 8, um, that's what we're looking for. Because some days our bodies don't want to show up and run hard 200s. It just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. And that's okay too. But if the effort is there, that's great.
I think maybe that's one of the most difficult things about self-coaching is you live that rate of perceived exertion. I talk about RPE all the time. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you get stuck between, I just like say, let's go over the 200s you just mentioned. Say you're supposed to be doing 200s, which if you're listening and you're a distance runner, there is a place for 200s in your lives, almost regardless of your distance, by the way.
Okay, so I brought up 200s because I did 200s last week and I'm training for a 5K. So we could talk about, a
I
1K
I would
or mile
suggest you could
repeats.
probably still do 200s even if you're doing marathon.
Yeah.
For if you're talking about working on like increasing max strength, like I think it has a place there. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's going to play a bigger role, and like I like to focus on 5K, 10K. I like to go fast and short, um, but just like we kind of neglect the faster stuff. The longer we go, it's usually just like, oh, we're going out forever, so let's forget the faster stuff. It's like it depends on whether you're trying to maximize your time, but um, so thinking about just the idea of self-coaching and kind of the drawbacks of it, the way I see it, I guess, is so like say you're doing the 200s, you don't hit your times, but like you were flat out gassed every single time you did them. Well,
Yeah.
then you don't need to be disappointed about your time. Like maybe you had an off day, you were up late last night, as happened to me earlier in the week, your cat threw up in your bed at quarter till 4, and then you're getting up early. Like, something happened and you just had a bad
Yeah.
day, and it's
Yeah. It
fine, but you don't
happens.
you don't have
Right.
that coach to like try to reassure you. Sometimes you live inside your own head
Yeah.
and you're just like with that negative self-talk that's so common among athletes. You just go down the
Oh,
spiral.
yeah, it's so, so, so common. And if anyone's having trouble hitting paces, there's so many things to look at. Time of day. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to get warmer out. Your heart rate's going to be higher. It's going to be difficult to hit track workouts if you're running in the heat of the day. That's just how it is. So, if you're doing track workouts, I guess, run in the morning or late at night, trying to avoid, midday sessions. Um, Sleep is going to impact that. How you show up to training. Did you take your easy day the day before easy enough? Or were you in that gray zone that so many athletes fall into of like, I'm going to push the pace? It all plays a factor. And we've all been there. We've all had days where we haven't hit paces, and that's okay too. Like, what I say to my athletes is training is not linear. So you can show up and you can have some amazing track workouts or some speed days. And then there's going to be a day where maybe you don't hit it. That's okay. But let's just dial things in and make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to set you up for success. And then we're going to go back, next week or do it again next week and see how you show up. Now, if the athlete is continuing to struggle to hit paces, there's probably something else going on. Nutrition plays a huge piece to this as well. Like, how much are you drinking before your track workout? How many ounces of water are you drinking? Electrolytes? What are you eating during the day? And are you eating a snack that's stomach friendly before the track workout? So I love, like, a banana is great if you're doing this outside of like first thing in the morning. And even first thing in the morning, you should be eating something, but a honey stinger waffle is great too. If your stomach will allow, like oatmeal with some honey, nut butter, something like that.
uh, you mentioned that results are nonlinear, and I think again that's another thing I like to think about, understanding something in several phases. So like we can hear something and then we kind of understand that there's this concept, and then we can understand the concept by like saying, okay, let's like say you graph your athletes results, and you get this jagged chart, but it's generally trending upwards or downwards
Oh
depending on
yeah.
how you're
Yeah.
looking at it, whichever way you want it to go. So obviously it's nonlinear because it's moving around, so that we can understand it from like that logical standpoint. But then I feel like the deeper understanding is like knowing it inherently, where
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to look at the numbers for reassurance. You just go, results are nonlinear, and then you move on to the next day. I'm going to assume that you're probably there. And so I want to ask you about how long did it take you to get to that place? Because I know like it took me, I don't know, maybe I started running when I was 12. So I'll say like 8 to 10 years maybe of running before I really got to a more comfortable place of like, if there's a bad workout, just letting it go instead of having to overanalyze it.
Yeah, it definitely comes over time for sure. And I think the more mature we are as athletes, the more that we can recognize that, hey, we're going to have off days, especially as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am very lenient on myself now. I'm like, well, the recovery just takes a little bit longer than it used to. And that's okay too. But yeah, when I first started running, I started running at 24, and I would run every single run so hard. And I'm sure you
Mm-hmm.
can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
And then it's, finding that balance of like, oh, I can actually do this and stay healthy because I was always injured. So it really actually took working with a coach. So I worked with Nell Rojas, first American woman at Boston in 21 and 22. She's awesome. So I first worked with her to run my first marathon at CIM, the California International Marathon. And she would tell me, like, oh, you're very mature as an athlete, like you just know your body and you know how it goes, how training goes. I'm using air quotes right now. But at the same time, if I really, really tried hard to nail each workout, and there was a lot going on in my world during that training cycle. And I remember there were a few like not so great training days. And it was really, really nice to have a coach there to say, hey, that's okay. This is going to be fine because XYZ. And also having that person there to help make you see like maybe you're doing something wrong, or I hate saying the word wrong, but like you could be doing something better to help you get those, to help you nail that workout. For me it was nutrition. So I was kind of stumbling through, first time marathon cycle. It's tough to keep in or eat enough or eat the right things at the right time and all the
Mm-hmm.
things. So it definitely helped having someone there to help me and guide me through it. But then I also feel like a lot of confidence has come through my race results and my times, and knowing that what I say to my athletes, and I say this to myself on the track too, is you are not your results. So if there is a bad day, like who I am as a human and as a person has nothing to do with the times that are on my Garmin watch. And it's a bad day and it's okay. And it actually makes me go into the next workout like with a little bit more fire, a little bit more zip. And I'm like, I'm going to dial this in. So maybe it means I'm going to bed a little bit earlier. I'm eating a better dinner. I'm eating a better breakfast, whatever that is. I create a new playlist to like pump up the energy. I enroll someone to run with me, something like that.
I had a thought and then I lost it. It's never happened to
You are
me.
not your results, Jesse. You are
That's
not your
exactly what I was.
results.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you about. No, that was actually my thought, because that comes up from time to time, especially when I talk to like Olympians, and they eventually have to make this transition. That's another thing I talked about with Dr. Bradford Cooper earlier this week or I guess as this comes out, it's the previous week's podcast, but for me recording it, it's literally this week for me.
Yeah.
But just like the idea of identity, how it's tied to us as runners, and then finding a place where you have the ability to not be so attached to that identity, because the more attached you are
Yeah.
to it, the more it is that like if you don't get a run in or you don't have the results you want, or again, results are
Maybe
non-linear,
injured.
you're injured,
Yeah.
then you go through this period of like existential crisis of who am I,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
I mean, we can go down a really big philosophical rabbit hole and say each of us is nothing, but that's a different conversation for another time. We're just the stories we tell ourselves. But just like it's so tough, I think, when you dedicate so much time to something, not to be tied to the results, to be have this non-attachment, because
Yeah.
that's why you put in the time, right? You want the results, thus you put in the time. And if it doesn't come, then it's this letdown. I think it takes some time to get to a place of maturity to go, eh, you know, it's just how it goes some days.
Yeah, definitely. It can be really tough. I think anytime we're training hard and we don't see the outcome in a race, it's super tough. And what I talk to my athletes about when we have race strategy calls before they race, and we talk about all the things that we can control. And then there's uncontrollable things, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the weather is one of them, how our bodies are going to show up, how our legs are going to show up on race day. Um, so let's control everything that we can control. And if the outcome still isn't there, like let's look at the uncontrollable things. Like was it windy? Was the weather a little bit warmer than you wanted? Was the route maybe hillier than we anticipated? Although as a coach, I always look at that stuff and try and train my athletes accordingly. And if maybe there's something missing in the controllable bucket, like that's an area to improve. And it's just a way to grow as an athlete. It's a way to grow as a coach. And it's something that we can work on together in the next training cycle. I feel like with racing, or let's say a track workout, there are always, whether it goes great or it doesn't go great, there are always ways that you can find to grow from it. And using it as a tool to say, okay, this actually didn't go well. What am I learning from this? How can I be a better athlete next time? And then applying it next time, I think is actually a really great win, and something that any athlete should be proud of.
Thinking about talking about making adjustments, learning for next time, and then you mentioned courses being a little bit hillier than anticipating. Um, it doesn't help you as far as fitness is concerned, but my tip for people always is do that course preview any way you
Yeah.
can. Do your course preview, whether you're getting in a car, whether you can run it, whether you can
Oh
get
man.
on like Google Maps and you're like clicking through to know your whatever it is. Try to
I'm
familiarize
laughing.
yourself with the course.
It's so true. So anytime I race or I travel to race, which is 9 times out of 10, I don't
Yeah,
actually like racing in Colorado.
yeah.
Shocker. I will drive the course the day before for sure. Now I have a lot of athletes racing the Fort Collins Marathon. It's called the Colorado Marathon on May 1st. And I said this on my podcast this week. I said, I gave the invitation to all the athletes to go up there. I mean, I have some like mega athletes looking to BQ, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited for them. They're all in super great shape. We're going to control everything that we can control on race day. The one thing that all of them said no to was controlling, going up there and doing a long run on the course or driving the course. So I'm hoping we can drive the course the day before the race. But it is so true. Like, you know, I ran the Mesa Marathon in February and I drove the course the day before. It was awesome because there was a 2 mile hill from miles 4 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the hill was there, but it was so nice to see it the day before the race, to visualize it and to tell
Mm-hmm.
myself, it's not really that bad. Don't look at your watch when you're running. Just get to the top of the hill. And then it's basically downhill or flat for the rest of the way, and you'll be fine. The Boston course is a lot hillier than anyone, says it is. And, but yeah, it's just really great to go out there, preview the course, start to visualize. You should be doing that in training anyways, whether you're in an easy run or a hard workout, or maybe you have goal pace in a long run, starting to visualize how you're going to push through the uncomfortable, but then also looking at the course and maybe calming the nerves the day before a race.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about it and just like you think about the difference between a route that you've run 100 times. Your brain goes on autopilot. You're not putting as much
Mm-hmm.
mental effort into paying attention to where you're running versus
Yeah.
like a brand new route. Like your brain's on high alert like the whole time, and you can't completely get rid of it. But the course preview helps bring that back a little bit, and then you use that mental energy for pacing rather than for like, where was this my turn? Is it coming up? Like what is that? Where is this? Is this the hill? Is it coming up now? Is this the like, you've got all that stuff,
Right.
and then you can just chill and focus on what you're doing. So
Yeah. I mean, I obviously did this for my first marathon too. We drove the course. We actually drove it backwards, which was whatever. It's fine.
Better than
But I
nothing.
remember turning better than nothing, right? And I remember turning to my boyfriend at the time. He was driving it, and I'm like, okay, so like what? We reset like the mileage tracker in the car, and I'm like, all right, so like where are we on the course? Because this feels like we've been driving for a really long time. And he's like, oh, we're at like mile 13. I'm like, oh, okay. This is my first marathon, right? I've only run a half before. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that was like a little bit in my head going into my first marathon, but it's just, I think it also kind of puts it into a unique perspective of, if you're a marathoner, if you're a half marathoner, even a 10K, 5K, like you're still doing something incredible because that is a long time to be out there on the road doing your thing, pushing hard and, creating something fun out of it.
Yeah. Sarah's, we're starting to run down on time. I'm going to ask you my season
Yeah.
question. For longtime listeners, they know every season I have a new question that I ask everybody for that
Oh,
particular year. Um, I'm hoping this is going to be up your alley. I feel like it will be. This year's question, because I'm bad at it and so many people are bad at it, is how do you celebrate your wins?
oh my gosh. I love celebrating my wins. It depends on like what win we're talking about. So what I do with my athletes, I call them elevated moments. So I will do those on coaching calls with my athletes. Me personally, as an athlete, if I race a PR, there's definitely a margarita happening after the race. Literally still in my clothes after the Boston Marathon, I PR'd a little over a minute, which I will take. We were, at a Mexican restaurant downtown Boston with the margarita in hand. So that's like tried and true. I think that's so much fun. And then it's also, acknowledging the hard work. I think that's important too, not taking it for granted. And then celebrating with friends and other runners who I run with and just making it fun. We get to do that. We get to celebrate our elevated moments, in training. I will do that with athletes over the course of a week. Let's celebrate something that you're really proud of. And then also, when we're going into taper, let's celebrate something in taper. And then also on race day. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. See, I knew you'd be the right person to ask for that question. So nailed it. Nailed it.
Did I nail it? Okay, great. I
Sarah,
mean, it's subjective, but
right, but that's okay. Sarah, if people want to get in touch with you, see what you're up to, where can they find you?
yeah. So I am on Instagram and Twitter at Sarah, that's SAYRAH runs happy. My website is elevateyourrunning.com. Instagram and Twitter for my coaching company is also Elevate Your Running. I have a podcast also called Elevate Your Running. So if you just Google Elevate Your Running, you'll find me. But
Find all the
I
things.
look forward to connecting with all of you online.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me today, Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for the conversation. It was great to chat.